The shadow world is the most dangerous disaster that humanity has ever faced. When it appears, heaven and earth are covered by a black mist that constantly sucks the life of living things. The person who caused the shadow disaster was a giant dragon, and many warriors died when entering the shadow to challenge this dragon. On the battlefield now there are only 6 heroes left. They planned together and defeated the dragon. Now that the sky is blue again, Desser thinks that this hell is finally over, and soon the whole team will return to the real world. Initially, a total of 150 million people came here to challenge the dragon, but in the end only 6 people in the group remained alive. The comrades that Desser had previously fought side by side all died on the battlefield, making him feel very sad. After talking for a while, the whole team began to share their future plans when returning to the real world. Desser suddenly remembered her best friend, who died in the recent battle. Perhaps Desser's mind was still very sad, so he said he didn't have any plans yet. At this moment, the dragon suddenly moved, making everyone very confused, not believing their eyes because just now they all saw the dragon fall. But now the magic power has returned to its body. Zod immediately said that he had previously read an ancient document, which stated that the dragon's heart, in addition to blood, also stored a huge amount of magic power. When the dragon dies, its health is lost, but its magic power remains, and now that magic power will be released, causing its body to explode. Zod believes that perhaps this is the first time in human history that dragons have been destroyed. So no one could have predicted this would happen. Currently, its stored magic power is so terrible that Zod thinks he cannot withstand it. No one can stop it. Zod immediately reminded everyone to prepare to leave, but for Desser, he could not accept such a sad ending. And in some magical way, Desser went back in time to return to the past. When Desser opened his eyes, he found himself standing in a very strange place, and when he looked in the mirror, Desser saw that he had become much younger. Suddenly Desser heard a lot of applause nearby. On stage, a professor was preparing to give a speech at the Academy's admission ceremony. As for Desser, he found this scene very familiar to him. Every word the professor said was remembered by Desser. She said that all students will have to take the Academy's admission exam and only 600 will be selected. The content of the competition is to complete the shadow world. Bree says that the shadow world she talks about is not real. This is just something created for the exam. Desser couldn't believe that this was happening to him. This is the time for the Academy's admission ceremony. Now, when he returned to the past, Desser was heartbroken, thinking that the war he had to go through no longer had any meaning. Sitting blankly in front of the hall door, Desser knew that this was not a dream because all the scenes of the Academy he remembered in his mind. At this time, a girl named Doric came to Desser. As soon as he met Doric, Desser remembered that she was a second-year student and was his support person. Seeing that Desser seemed worried about the shadow world, she encouraged him to rest assured because the purpose of the contest was just to test whether Desser could fight or not. Another thing is that Desser is a civilian. No matter how talented he is, civilians will never be taught properly. Therefore, many magical talents were buried in this academy. Doric used his card to bring Desser into the hall. Seeing that Desser didn't seem surprised, Doric couldn't help but wonder, and Desser just joked that he had seen a building exactly like this. As soon as they left the hall, the two encountered a noble named Tri. Desser remembers correctly that he is a water-attributed magician and Doric has a feud with him. Doric also admitted to Desser that she absolutely hated someone like him. When he heard Desser's name, Tri immediately discovered that he was just a civilian, so he laughed loudly. After hearing his words, Doric was angry and couldn't do anything. At this moment, the Academy's loudspeaker rang out that the entrance exam was about to begin, so Doric turned to tell Desser that he must pass and not fail this exam. When Desser arrived at the exam venue, he looked around and couldn't see the familiar girl anywhere. But at that moment, Roman appeared behind Desser, making him very happy. Because in the war in the future, Roman died in his arms. So now that Desser can return to the past, he will definitely fix it to prevent that tragedy from happening. Seeing that Roman was still safe, Desser couldn't hide his joy, and she wondered if the two had ever met before. Desser will definitely try very hard to change the past, because when he lost Roman, he felt extremely hopeless. Doric informed Desser that he would be in Group D and that the exam content was to complete the elementary shadow world. There is a safety system inside, so every time you die, you will immediately escape. Tri also arrived and told Desser that candidates were allowed to attack each other, so he would find every way to prevent Desser from passing this exam. After that, he introduced the person he was in charge of as the demon swordsman girl Azette. She is a swordsman with the ice attribute and a lot of powerful magic. Furthermore, she also possesses superior swordsmanship and is one of Desser's most trusted comrades. Although the swordswoman is a very strong person, Doric does not allow Desser to give up. After that, we all entered the shadow world whose terrain was a grassland. According to the system announcement, only 3 students were allowed to pass and everyone was allowed to use attack magic to hinder their opponents. In case you receive too much damage causing death, you will be eliminated from the exam. According to Desser's memory, it seemed like Azette would last until the end. As for Azette, she read all of Desser's information on the notice board. Knowing that in addition to the lowest magic level, Desser's physical ability was also below average, Azette reminded Desser not to worry because she did not like attacking a weak person like him. At this time, the system was counting down, signaling that the competition was about to begin, and as soon as the departure announcement was announced, Azette immediately rushed forward at extremely fast speed. Desser and Roman started a bit slower. At this moment, Desser realized there was an ambush ahead, so he pushed Roman aside to avoid his opponent's fire magic attack. And the other guy said that this time he would blow them both away. Seeing him use fire-bending skills, Roman responded with an air-bending attack. It seemed like the two magics had eliminated each other, but Roman suddenly added another wind magic attack, causing the other guy to be immediately eliminated from the exam. Azette also received information that there were only 5 contestants left on the map, and Roman immediately thanked Desser for helping her earlier. Both were quite far behind compared to the previous 3. Seeing that, Roman demonstrated his true strength to Desser with a very powerful wind magic. At this time, the Academy Council was observing the contestants through the monitor screen. They noticed that this year the registered contestants were all elite people, including noble swordsmen like Azette. An overwhelming force over his competitors. They thought Desser was a poor civilian when he had to fall into the same group as her, only the professor was looking forward to his performance. Currently, Azette is the leader of the group in the race to the finish line, and the person chasing Azette thinks that at this speed, he will also finish behind her. But at that moment, Roman's wind blew, causing him to be held in place, unable to move. And Azette used his sword to slash away the wind that was blocking his way. However, Roman's wind blew a tree straight into this guy's face. And after Roman's wind magic attack, the other 2 young men were eliminated, so there were only 3 people left on the map. Because Desser had an obnoxious attitude just now, Roman had to remove him from this exam. Before attacking Desser, she gave him a chance to surrender. However, Desser just smiled and said that he would like to refuse. So Roman got angry, and at the same time moved many magic circles, then headed straight towards Desser. Thinking that Desser had disappeared after this attack, Roman looked very happy. But then Desser still stood there leisurely, making her surprised. She used a new air-bending technique to attack Desser. This time Desser used counter-calculus magic to deflect and destroy her attack. Desser plans to end the battle with Roman and go find Azette. As soon as he heard this sentence, Roman was forced to unleash all his strength. Many magic circles were summoned by her, then they simultaneously attacked Desser. But no matter how much, Desser still calculated perfectly and blocked all of her attacks. Desser then destroyed all of Roman's magic circle. Desser immediately cast magic. The fireball behind him made Roman think he was crazy. But immediately the fireball pushed Desser forward and knocked Roman aside. At this time, Azette was rushing towards the finish line when Desser also arrived in time. Roman was defeated by Desser and she had a different view of his strength, so Azette decided to use all his strength to fight Desser. She released many ice magic circles, but Desser used math and sealed half of them. Desser cast magic, deflecting their trajectory. Thanks to that, after receiving the full attack, Desser avoided fatal injuries. He even took control of Azette's ice magic, ready to counterattack her. DJ took advantage of the explosion's reaction force to rush straight towards Izette. However, he didn't touch her and rushed towards the finish line. Although Desser was the winner of Group D, he did not appear satisfied because his main task was to make Izette and Roman stronger. From there, we can all overcome the tragedy in the coming future. The winner of Group F was a young man named Haddon, and when he saw Desser's team, he was plotting some evil intention. After the exam results are out, the Academy Council will assign classes to the Alpha Class students, which is only for students with aristocratic backgrounds and high-level magic, so they do not place one class at a time. Any civilians go to this class. However, the principal wanted to recommend a special student to the Alpha Class, and the professor suggested a name for him. That is Desser. He is the person who deserves to be in Alpha Class the most. Meanwhile, the students were looking at the class list posted in the academy. Those who passed the Alpha Class all seemed very happy, and Roman couldn't believe that she passed the exam and only got to study in the Beta Class. She saw that this was a class only for civilians, with very poor facilities. Obviously, it was built a long time ago and still allows students to study normally. She was bitter about having to study in Beta Class and having to sit next to someone she didn't like at all. Desser knows full well that no matter how good he is, he can only study in the Beta Class. Even if the professor was Desser's acquaintance, she could not help him because the noble teachers objected violently. From the beginning, this academy had a wall between commoners and nobles, but Desser didn't care about that anymore because this Beta Class still had many excellent students. To prevent the dark future from repeating itself, Desser must find a way to help people awaken their inner strength. Because he didn't want to talk to anyone, during recess, Roman just slept. At this moment, young Haddon came to her to say hello. He introduced that he was in Alpha Class and had just joined the Academy's #1 team. This time he came here to recruit someone with outstanding strength like Roman. After listening, she felt a little more hopeful, because if she joined this team, maybe she would have a chance to be promoted to Alpha Class by the Academy. However, Haddon has one condition: if Roman joins the team, she must date him. Moreover, for someone with a noble background like Roman to study in a dirty class like Beta, he cannot accept it. Faced with this sudden request, Roman said that she needed time to think. Haddon also accepted and gave her a souvenir of his homeland. People will only give this item to those who have feelings. As soon as Haddon left, Desser came to congratulate Roman, startling her. Desser said that he had the same request as Haddon. That's inviting her to his team. Of course, Roman refused. Desser knew in his heart that Roman's decision was a mistake. There was no other way. Desser had to leave a letter and tell her to read it in a place where no one was around. As soon as Desser left, Roman saw his letter and she felt very confused when Desser knew so many secrets about her. Meanwhile, Desser found another of his old teammates, a boy named Pram. It is known that in the future, Pram will be the fastest swordsman at the academy. At this moment, Roman arrived at Desser's place. Pram is preparing to enter a rehearsal. Pram chose a great sword to spar with a noble in the Alpha Class. And when the match started, Pram held his sword and continuously attacked, causing him to be pushed back. However, Pram's physical strength seemed a bit weak, so he lost strength very quickly. Desser doesn't understand why Pram chose the big sword. Because this weapon takes a lot of effort, the noble now attacks in one go, causing Pram to be cornered. When Pram swung his sword, the speed wasn't fast enough, so he dodged. The sword made him a loser. Even though the noble had won, he still felt bitter towards Pram because he had hit him earlier, so he walked over and punched him repeatedly in the face to relieve his anger. Desser saw this and ran to stop him, cursing him as a coward. After hearing this, he became even more upset, so he picked up a wooden sword and intended to beat Desser. However, he blocked it with just one hand, causing the sword to break in half. Right after that, Pram bandaged Desser's wound. He feels very sorry now that Desser has become an enemy of the Alpha Class. But Desser encouraged him that this was something he caused himself, so Pram didn't need to pay attention. At this time, Pram introduced his name to get to know Desser and Roman. When the two went to a private place, Desser said that he knew Roman's background was just a commoner, but her parents used a lot of money to buy her the title of nobility. Perhaps all the teachers at the academy knew about this, so even though he was a noble, Roman was still pushed down to the beta class. Desser also advised her not to accept Haddon's invitation because he only sees civilians as dirty people. So Desser's goal is to invite Romab to his team. She finally accepted Desser's invitation to join the party.